Welcome to the Burgundy and Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, you know who's with me. It's my main man, Reggie. What's going on, Reggie?
Mr. Kenny J. How are you doing, brother?
I'm well. After a third win in a row, I'm not doing too bad at all. I am not doing too bad. How about you, my man?
Man, little bittersweet, man. Just take this offline for a little bit for our listeners out there. We're gonna get into the podcast about the game and everything. I was actually fortunate enough to be in Arizona for this game, and while I was in Arizona, I got some bad news, some tragedy in my family while I was in Arizona. So it was we're doing this podcast with a little bit of a heavy heart. Um, just to keep things personal and not to put a lot of my personal business out there. I won't get into the specifics, but I want people to understand that I probably won't be around for the next podcast or two or something like that. And so you may see it in my demeanor a little bit, but I just want the listeners to know that some things happened with me personally, and so I tried to make the best of the weekend while I was in Arizona. And so again, with a little bit of a heavy heart, we're doing this podcast, and I'm going to try my best to kind of put on a smile and keep this going for our listeners and for my buddy Ken. Ken has been great. For those that do know us in real life, Ken and I have been friends for a very long time. He's been very supportive, and I appreciate that. And for the sake of me not getting emotional on this podcast, we're going to transition this back to what this is about. And so I just wanted to kind of put that out there for our listeners as well.
Well, absolutely, absolutely, and our hearts are with you and your family. It puts life into perspective, right? We get on here and we get hot and heavy and mad and happy, but when it comes down to it, our family and friends and loved ones that we're closest with is really what life is about. But again, we are with you and your family.
Appreciate it.
And there's not a smooth way to pivot from this. But Reggie, you were in Arizona, as you mentioned, and we'll get into the game here in a minute. But give me a little bit about Arizona. I have not been to the stadium. I know from what you said that appeared to have a strong presence of the burgundy and gold. Go ahead and fill us in a little bit on the
there was so if you've never been to the Phoenix area, the stadium is actually in Glendale, which is about a good 30 minutes north of the city, downtown, I should say, downtown Phoenix. But it's like any metropolitan area. I mean, it's all connected, but as you're driving on the interstate or the freeway, and the stadium is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but it's kind of built up out there. The thing that was a little surprising was, most everywhere across the United States right now, we've transitioned into fall. So whether it's the rain, whether it's the cooler temperatures and things of that nature, apparently fall does not exist in Phoenix. It was 115 degrees. And so it was extremely hot. When it came to tailgating, because the game was out in the West, it started at 1 o'clock local time in Phoenix. So that was 3 o'clock Central and 4 o'clock Eastern.
Right.
There wasn't a whole lot of tailgating.
Right.
It's kind of hard to tailgate when you're being cooked along with the grills out there. So it wasn't a lot of that.
It's a dry heat. It's a dry heat, right, Rich?
Bro. It was like standing in front of a heater, man, where it's just cooking your skin. I mean, it was hot. And so they have this area, what they call the flight zone, I think is what it's called. And that's where they have this big screen television. They had live bands and entertainment. The only people in that area was the band. I felt sorry for those people because there was no one listening, man. It was extremely hot. It was hot. Yeah. And people were trying to find the shade. But with that being the case, man, once we got inside the stadium, it is a very nice stadium. Thank God for air conditioning. But it was a great stadium. And me trying to paint the picture here would not be doing it justice, man. There was a ton of Commander fans. It was unbelievable. It was almost as if we were in DC, if you will.
Yeah.
And so everywhere you turned and looked, it was Commanders fans everywhere. And so that was kind of fun. And so we get to our seats and everything, and we're sitting on the visitor side, purposely.
Right.
And I kid you not, it was when anything was happening from Washington, you could hear the cheers. And of course, I put a little bit of information on social media, and people were responding and saying that they could hear it on television. They could see all the burgundy and gold in the stands. They talked about hearing the fans yelling, screaming when things were
Yeah.
going good for Washington. And I have no doubt, because we were thick. We were thick in that stadium, man. People everywhere. And but I will say the Cardinal fans were nowhere near what you would consider Eagles fans. Even some Cowboy fans, to that matter. Living here in Dallas and going to Commander games against the Cowboys here, there's some hostility, and there was not every fan that we encountered, man, that was a Cardinal fan was nice. No one wanted to fight you. No one was telling you to get out of the stadium. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, it was none of that. They were very hospitable. Um, but I understood some of the frustration, because we've seen in our own stadium as Washington fans how the opposing team has come in and pretty much taken over your stadium.
Right.
And for a little bit, for a brief moment, I felt bad for Cardinal fans. But then, realizing what we were witnessing and what was happening on Sunday, for us to be potentially getting our third win, we couldn't help but be joyful in what we were seeing, because we've not been in this place for a very, very, very long time. And
Right.
so it was quickly turned to joy and happiness, and a lot of celebrating among the fans and everything. So it was good. It was a good experience, man.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. It was
And
fun.
as I was watching the game, right off the bat, one of our buddies that sits at our table, Drew, spoke up and said, from a viewing on TV perspective, it looked like it was an outdoor game. The way they had the roof, and I finally got the camera caught a picture of the roof where it was almost like just I don't know about clear, but opaque to let a lot of light in.
Yes.
Because it definitely didn't look like it was stadium lights. When you see a
Mm,
nighttime game, you can tell it's a different look about it. It was a full glow of sunlight, what it was, and
yeah.
so that was pretty cool to see there. It definitely, watching on TV, you could see a lot of burgundy and gold in the stands. I mean, it was noticeable. It didn't, and it's not like the burgundy and gold and the cardinal red is that far off on the color spectrum. And there was enough that you noticed, and you saw how many Commanders Redskins fans there were. So
Yeah, and it was interesting that when Dan Quinn did his post game press conference,
mhm,
he started the press conference by thanking the fans that had traveled and that was there
yeah,
for the game, and he mentioned how they heard us and they felt us and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of cool for Dan Quinn to acknowledge the fans, which was a smart move on his behalf, right?
yeah,
To not take that for granted, but to keep fans engaged as we recalibrate, as he likes to say.
yeah,
And so that was really cool for him to do that. And we left the game, try to get ahead of the traffic. And but I did see a video on Twitter where after the game, uh, Jake Daniels had taken off his pads and everything, and he
yep.
runs over. A lot of fans stayed in the stadium, and he runs over, and all the fans are hanging off on the front row, leaning over, and he just runs through, and he's high-fiving all the fans. And just to see that video, man, you got to see a ton of fans that was still
There was
there.
a lot of fans sticking around after the game. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was cool. We were long gone by then, but that was pretty cool to see, man. And like I said, I know I'm not doing it justice when I tell you the number of people that were Commander fans that was in that stadium, man, for
That,
sure.
that is definitely pretty cool. That is definitely
There
pretty
were,
cool.
and one last thing, there were every time the team scored, there was the first verse basically, of "Hail to the Redskins."
Okay.
That was being sung after every score,
Right.
and then of course, at some point, this is the part I think is ridiculous, but at some point during the game, toward the end, there were "Let's Go Redskin" chants, right? And we've heard
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
even at the home games,
Yep.
and there was "Let's Go." I don't know why people continue to do that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there
Yeah.
were chants of it, and apparently it can be heard on the television as well. So
Yeah. I can see still singing the song and not changing the words. It's something you've been doing forever. But yeah, that chant is. eh, I wouldn't even call it wishful thinking. We've already, ownership has already said it's not going back. But anyway, we'll move on past that. We'll move on
yeah,
past that.
yeah, yeah.
And turning to the game, we talked about week one. Obviously, we lost to Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Starting week two, week three, week four. Obviously, now we've had 3 wins in a row, but it is just some crazy stats every single week. Like the first time ever on week two, the first time ever, week three, the first time since 42.
Mm-hmm.
These crazy stats continue to come around every single week. And I'll go through some of that, but you're seeing the growth of a team. Um, Top to bottom. There's no doubt Jaden Daniels is the spark that is doing this. But you're seeing the growth of the offense. We may have seen this week the growth of the defense stepping up to some degree. They weren't perfect, but noticeably improved over the first 3 weeks. And I'll get into some stats that kind of just make, not that they're overwhelming stats. And the one that I'll use here that isn't related is Terry McLaurin only had 52 yards receiving and 1 TD. But if you saw any videos of him coming off the field, you would have thought that he caught 3 or 4 touchdowns for 197 yards, right? He is into it. He's contributing 100%. He's in the game. He's doing everything. But it is a winning team mentality, and everybody wants to be a piece of it. Everybody is on board. And like I said, you could see that even after the game when everybody was coming out. They were just happy. I mean, Terry was screaming and hollering like, if that's how you are winning 3 games and beating the Cardinals, how are you going to be if they win the Super Bowl the next 2-3 years? So
Yeah.
it's really good to see. Really good to see.
Well, when you're at the game, obviously you lose some of the stats that get posted on the screen,
Mhm.
the zoom in camera angles that they may focus in on certain players and things. So you miss that with all the action that's going on live. And but there was a post where the Commanders' social media team posted the video inside the locker room, and you can just see the exuberance between Terry and Jaden and all the players and stuff.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the video posted where they give out game balls, and they John Kine mentioned it a little bit because he's the media. He says the locker room is right next to where they do the post game press conferences, and you could just hear all of the cheering and stuff coming out of the locker room. And one of those cheers was when they handed Cliff Kingsbury the game ball, and he said that there will be, he meaning Dan Quinn, mentioned that there would be some other game balls handed out, but they did not want to leave the state of Arizona without giving Cliff uh, the first of those game balls for that game. And so, yeah, there's a lot of excitement going on, man. We talked about it on the last podcast about if they go to Arizona and lay an egg, then it diminishes what they did in Cincinnati.
Right.
And for this team, because in years past, this team would have done exactly that. But for them to go to Arizona, stay in Arizona all week, they went straight from Cincinnati down to Phoenix, stay there away from home. So it's essentially 2 road games, and come out and play complimentary football the way they did on a short week on the road. against a pretty what was supposed to be a pretty solid team.
Right, right.
And to do what they did, man, is another one of those check marks where you go, things are different. Because we all feel like things are different.
Right.
But it's one more time, one more thing, one more step where you go, man, this is different. Because when Phoenix got the ball, the Cardinals got that ball in the first drive and just drove down the field and scored. I was like, okay, all right. This is what had me worried, because I was worried about this game.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I was like, okay, so how do we answer? And I was extremely concerned with the lack of having Austin Eckler there. So how would this offense look? And what does Washington do? Drove right down the field and tied the ball game. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, here we go, man. Here we go. And so, our defense has been questionable. And for them to allow an opening drive touchdown, it's like, okay, what are they going to do next? And they come out. I don't remember exactly what they did, but clearly they didn't allow a second score. And then our offense gets the ball and scores again. Right. And it was good to see, man. I think I know we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but for the fact that the Cardinals scored on the opening drive of the first quarter, they finished the game with 14 points, and that second touchdown came with 11 seconds left in the third quarter.
Right.
I mean, they've pretty much dominated those guys.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it coming. I think the defense still has some issues with stopping the run up the middle.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm going to just hope that that's going to get better. But the defensive game plan and how they was able to control and contain the Cardinals offense, man, there's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
We're not perfect, but there's something to be said for their performance.
Well, and when you went to the second half, still kind of commenting on the defense here. When the second half came around, I don't think Kyler was sacked a single time in the first half. I think that he was sacked 4 times total, and I think they were all in the second half. And a lot of those sacks were because nobody was open. They were coverage sacks, yes. Right? And so kudos to the secondary, and kudos. Another thing related to that was Kyler only had 1 run for 3 yards. Right?
Yeah.
So he's a scrambling quarterback. He gets in trouble, and he can hurt you. But they had a very contained, controlled rush, and he had a pocket at times, but he didn't have anything more than the pocket to be able to get out and run and go. So
we talked about that on the last podcast, is how they're going to have to kind of create a little bit of havoc, and pressure him, but also contain him, to your point.
And they did. It's one thing to say it, but they executed that game plan and just didn't let crazy plays that somebody like Kyler or there's a handful of running quarterbacks out there that we'll be facing later on the season that can do that. Right. So the fact that they put this game plan together and it worked, what happens the next time that they face a similar quarterback, right? It's right. Like, okay, we understand it. We've done this once. We'll still make some adjustments from team to team like you have to. But we know that this concept of what we did works. Tighten up the run game or the run defense a little bit, and the defense is going to be okay, right? We're not expecting a lockdown defense. We just don't want a porous defense.
Right. And, and I was adamant and concerned about being able to contain Kyler Murray. And that was a lot of that had to do with based on how our defense had played the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And for our defense to get 4 sacks on this guy, right? And to your point, he tried to screen. Either it was a coverage sack, or it was a case that he tried to scramble. There was nowhere for him to go. And when he did escape outside the pocket, the speed of our linebackers forced him to run out of bounds.
Yep.
or he had to throw it away or something along those lines. There was nowhere for him to go, even if he got outside the edge.
Right.
Louvu, Wagner, and those guys cut off his angles, and there's nowhere to go. He's got to go outside. And so for him to not have major rushing yards, beating us with his legs, he also didn't really beat us with his arm. I mean, the guy had less than 150 yards passing for the entire game.
Right.
He had 142 total to be exact, right? 16 completions out of 22 attempts. And a lot of that had to do with time of possession. We dominated time of possession. And so with the way our defense was able to control their offense, man, I tip my hat to the defensive guys. There's still work to be done.
Yes.
No doubt. There's still work to be done. But man, to see this team improve over the past 4 weeks offensively, the defense seems to be improving a little bit at a time, just not at the same rate as our offense.
Right.
But the defense seems to be improving a little bit at a time, one tick at a time. And man, I'm excited to see where this is ultimately going to end up.
Yeah. Some of these stats you may have heard, but just pause for a second on some of these stats, right? Okay. Real quickly, the easy stats was Jaden Daniels was 26 for 30, 233 yards, TD, had his first interception, but he had 0 sacks. He had 9 of 30 balls were past 10 yards, thrown past 10 yards. So roughly a third of he's going downfield some. Yes, he's still, I think every team is still doing some 10 yards and in. That's very common. Either number 1 or number 2 in the league is actually Patrick Mahomes. Is either 1 or 2 of yards like within the 5-yard line or something. A lot of short dump passes. So clearly Kansas City finds a way of being successful with it. Right. Couple things. This game makes him the first quarterback in NFL history to complete 85% of his passes or more in back-to-back games. His 81.2 completion percentage is the highest by any quarterback, veteran or rookie, through 4 games since Tom Brady did it in 2007, and he was at 79.2. So the GOAT was at 79.2 through 4 games. He's 3% higher. And this is the one that kind of one of the stats that kind of really threw me when I read it.
Let me add to that before you go to the next stat, because I was one of my stats I had here as well. And he's in the company, to your point, Ken, it's the highest completion percentage in a 4-game span at any point during the season, at any point in your career.
Yep.
And on this list, he's the only rookie, because you're looking at Kurt Warner, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, and sitting up top is Jaden Daniels.
Nice company.
All Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Every one of them Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And Jaden Daniels is sitting at number 1 in 4 games. His first 4 games of his career, he has done something that no other quarterback has done at a higher rate in their career.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen, I know some people had seen that stat. I think they even flashed something about that on TV during the game. But this is one that I saw. The Commanders are just the second team in NFL history with more scoring drives, 23, than incomplete passes, 19, through their first 4 games to start a season.
Yeah,
right.
I heard
more scoring drives. They've scored 23 times, and that's 4 more than the amount of incompletions that Jaden Daniels has. That's crazy. That is a crazy number.
Yeah, the thing that I keep hearing,
and that goes all the way back to 1973. 1973. That was a 14-game season. Some of the people don't even know there was 14-game seasons,
The thing that's also pretty fun and cool is associates, friends, even coworkers commenting about saying, "Hey, I think you guys got a good quarterback there. I think you guys have found your quarterback." Right? There's a lot of that going around where people are noticing. People have
Yeah,
taken notice of, hey, man, that Jayden Daniels kid, man, whoo, you know. So that's been pretty cool. That's been pretty cool to hear. Um, the fact that you're talking about the numbers and stuff in the past 2 games, Washington's put up 80 points.
yeah,
80 points, right? We were a team that couldn't even get to 20, right? We was
yep,
averaging 15 points a game at one point. And now in the past 2 games, we've put up 80 points. And one of the things I want to point out too is, the offensive line is getting a lot of love, right? Due
yeah,
to the run blocking, pass blocking. And if you watch the games, you know that there's been times where Jayden has avoided sacks,
right,
meaning it would have been a sack with some of these other quarterbacks, but his mobility and athleticism has allowed him to escape. And he's either been able to run for first, run out of bounds, and not to avoid the sack, or roll out and make a completion of some sort.
right.
But it wasn't because the O line protected great. It's just that he was able to avoid the sack, so it doesn't go down as a sack given up by offensive line.
Yeah,
But that being the case, I still don't want to take away that the offensive line is still playing a lot better than I think everyone is giving them credit, because it was the number one concern for a lot of people. Will they continue to improve this offensive line next season? I'm pretty sure that they probably will.
yeah.
But at the same token, Dan Quinn and those guys are like, we're going to roll what we got. We think we're good.
They're
And
finding a way.
I was, for one, who said the offensive line wasn't my number one concern, because again, I felt like Jayden Daniel was gonna mask some of the deficiencies, and that's exactly what happened. All of a sudden, we're not even talking about Andrew Wiley, the right tackle. I don't think we talk about his name at all,
Yeah,
other than just saying, "Hey, he's a good run blocker." Do we realize we got a rookie playing left tackle, or we got a veteran that's kind of always been a backup on the left tackle? No one's talking about it.
right.
No one's talking about it, because for Jayden to do some of the things he's doing, put up some of these numbers, that means the offensive line is doing just enough
Yeah.
to allow him to be successful 4 games into his career. So I just want to give a little bit of love and a little bit of shine, man, to the O line
Well,
for the job
and
that
it's
they've done thus far.
yeah, and I think it's one of these things where the credit needs to be passed around to a lot of people, right? Um, the Cliff Kingsbury is doing a wonderful job of setting up the rookie, right? The rookie's got talent. Dan Quinn commented about how much hard work that Jaden Daniels puts in, right? And I'm talking film time. I'm talking, learning the calls, learning the plays, learning the other team's plays, just getting it to where you don't think about it, you just do it. And look, you're in the NFL. There's a lot of people that put in extra work, especially in the quarterback position. Um, but when you have the skill set that Jaden has and the work ethic that everybody says that he has, um, and after 4 games, he has the it factor on the field. Um, that is, dialing in for success, and Kingsbury recognizes it, and he's putting him in consistent positions to be successful. Like I said, this is a team win. Yeah, again, it is sparked by Jaden Daniels without a doubt. But it is a coaching win. It is an offensive win. It is defensive win. It is the organization that is doing this all the way across the board. You know, Jaden Daniels is doing all this. We were worried about Dotson. You
You don't
go
even hear his
go
name
look at his stats with the number one and number two wide receiver gone.
in
Adam Peters made
Philadelphia.
the right call.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So you're referring to the fact he's in Philly, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith were injured yesterday, or not playing in yesterday's game due to injury, and yet we've not heard nothing about Jahan Dotson having
He has
success in
5 catches
Philadelphia.
this year. In 4 games, he has 5 catches.
And A.J. Brown has been out all season, so he's
Yes.
had opportunities, playing time, and opportunities to make catches.
So while we were all stunned, while we were all shaking our heads saying, man, what is this Adam Peters' first, boneheaded move? Clearly it wasn't. We got a 3rd round pick next year for somebody that's not producing in the NFL. Man, that's
What
a
about
good
the
GM.
what about the crowd that said that our wide receiver core was terrible and it's going to be the death of this team, and we need to trade for Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins or any other big time receiver out there?
I,
There's
I
that
think it
crowd.
was I think it was a legitimate concern. Because there's some unprovens there. It was Terry and the crew, right?
Well, but
At
but
wide
my point
receiver.
being is, there was concerns with the O line. There's concern
Yes.
with wide receiver. There's concern with the cornerback. There's concerns at different levels of this team, and yet somehow the coaching staff has done a good enough job to where people aren't really questioning the offensive line,
Yep.
the wide receiver group, right?
Not
We're not
now.
asking a whole lot of questions right now. All of a sudden
Right.
you're winning, and hell, no one is even talking about the team name anymore,
And and
right?
to that point, I know people don't look at it or pay attention to it. Jaden Daniels yesterday completed passes to 9 different people. 9 different people. Right?
Wow.
Terry got 5 catches, but there were 8 other people with at least 1 catch. The ball is, if you're open in the play, you're number 1, number 2, number 3 option, you're getting the ball.
Wow.
If the play starts breaking down, keep hustling your butt off, because Jaden's going to find you if you're open and make a play. If he can't do it with his legs, I mean, he did that little pitch, the pitch pass the one time, and it's just things are going right now. Let's enjoy it, right?
Well, let's enjoy it, because we don't know how this thing is going to ultimately end. Um, we talked about it before everything started. Is we just want it to be solid. We want to look like a competent organization, a competent football team, and we wanted the arrow to be pointed up despite the wins and losses. And 4 games into this season, I think we're getting exactly what we wanted. How this will ultimately fold over the next 13 weeks, who knows?
Right.
But what I do know at this point, man, is we have a legitimate football team, Ken. We're a legitimate football franchise / organization doing legitimate football moves. You watch the games, we're tough, we're competitive. You watch the OC calling plays that doesn't just look vanilla, where the
Yep.
defense already knows what we're doing, but no, he's throwing in wrinkles and all kinds of things, misdirection plays that other teams' offensive coordinators are doing. We got a defense that's flying around to the ball. Do they need improvement? Absolutely. But what you can't question is they're playing hard.
Right.
So we have a team right now that I think as many of our fans can be proud of. And man, it is showing up, and it's starting to show up. And listen, I'll be the first to tell you, when I saw a lot of those people in Arizona, I immediately thought, where the hell is these people been?
Right.
Right? All of a sudden we win some games, and now everybody's coming out like cockroaches. And winning cures all of that, right? These are bandwagon fans, some of them.
Right.
And then I quickly was like, well, you know what? Whatever, man. It's all love. They're still supporting the same team I'm supporting. Let's go. And but
Yeah.
it's not
We
lost on me that I think there's some bandwagon fans that are kind of coming back now that things are looking up.
Yeah. Wait till I mean, at the fan club here in the Dallas area, that Reggie and I go to, it was pretty full. It was pretty full. as before the win, right? We get another win like this. There's going to be more fans that all of a sudden seem to find a way to the bar that were before they were shopping at Costco or Sam's with their wife, and they were. Oh, I was watching it on my phone. I was keeping track of it on my phone. That's not going to be good enough anymore. And thank goodness that we have a reserved table because we're diehard. Reggie's been coming for a long time. I've been going to the bar for it's like 25 years now.
Yeah.
Remember the old Cheers? You walk in and Norm. Sometimes I feel like that's how they might be with me. Another year or two. But
It's all good, man. At least they know
it
we're
is all
loyal,
good.
man.
We keep going there because they treat us right, and uh, it all
And,
works
it,
out.
it's kind of our only escape here when it comes to football season here in the Dallas area, where we can go be among other fans and watch our team play. Because you go to most bars around here, you're coming in, hey, can you put the Commanders game on? Yeah, I don't think so, right? But
Yeah, this is our
here,
safe space.
absolutely, this is definitely our safe space where we can go and find like-minded people
Yeah,
rooting for the same team. Because here in the Dallas market, that's just not going to happen at most bars, man.
yeah.
So
Um, I'm gonna throw this out here real quick. We kind of covered a lot on the game and the stats and everything. And this I'm going to admit this is a little bit premature, but for where we are at 4 games, how does this change or persuade Adam Peters over the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years that Jaden seems like he's the guy? You got him for in court according to quarterback dollars, you got him for pocket change. Um, are we going to see the Commanders? And we'll start talking about this. I'm sure other people start talking about this in January after the season is over. But Washington is sitting good on draft capital. We're sitting very good on the salary cap. Uh, I'm going to go ahead and roll the ball out there. Washington may be making some big let's go for it now moves sooner than people think.
yes, I tend to agree with you because I think that's the blueprint for the NFL right now. We know the league is a copycat league, and whenever a team finds their quarterback, then the window is very short before you have to pay said quarterback. So you tend to go all in.
Yep.
You can afford to put the big money someplace else for the next 2 or 3 years and go for it. And there's a few things. We have an organization, ownership. We have a GM that's likable. We have a head coach that's likable. We have a quarterback that people are going to want to come play with. So Washington would be a destination for free agents.
Yes.
I think that if this thing still, and I'm not even talking about making the playoffs, just as all of a sudden this team looks like we're just a few pieces away, I have no doubt that Adam Peters will make some big moves. And I know this is very early, but at the number one on that list, and I know people don't want to talk about it, I'm telling you, man, I think number one on that list is going to be number 11 that wears silver and blue here in the Dallas area, and that's Michael Parsons. I think Dan Quinn, Joe Witt, they're going to spend money and try to go after Michael Parsons and bring him to DC. That's my bold prediction.
It wouldn't surprise me, but I don't think we know Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones isn't going to let him go. Parsons is one of those guys that Jerry Jones will make sure is a Cowboy for life.
Let's say
And
they
that
don't make
just
the playoffs. Let's say they don't make the playoffs. Right? Everybody they paid Dak,
yep,
they paid CD,
yep.
and Mike McCarthy's gone. If Mike McCarthy's gone, then probably so is Zimmerman. or Zimmer, whatever his name, the defense
Right,
coordinator.
right, right. I mean, it could be
Michael,
that,
Michael's free,
but Jerry Jones is the owner and GM,
but he,
and
but he's still free agent at that point.
I agree. I like I said, it just I find it. I'll be surprised that he
Okay.
goes anywhere, not just to Washington or anywhere. I'll be surprised if Jerry Jones lets him go anywhere. He'll pay the price. He'll make the deal. He'll sell that, make the sale to Micah financially and whatever. You're like, hey, you're gonna go into the Hall of Fame as a Cowboy.
I'll say one last thing.
Yeah.
We have the money to compete for his services.
Yes.
And if you ask Michael Parsons, just based on what the reports are out there, he loves Dan Quinn.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
look, if Jerry can pay him, and so can Josh Harris, he knows what Dan's going to do for him. He knows what they're going to expect for him. He knows the system, him and Joe Witt. Look, man, all you're telling me is that Jerry promised him what the star can give him. And I'm not downplaying what that could mean for him financially. But right now, all things equal, money-wise, I can see him wearing burgundy gold next year. But we're still early in this because I will say this,
Yeah.
man. We're first place in the NFC East at this point.
Yes, we are.
Sitting at 3-1. And the last time we were 3-1 was 2011. That was the year before RG3 got here. And you go, wait a minute, we were sitting at 3-1 in 2011? We were, and we were excited like we are now. And you know how we finished the season? 5-11. So we only won 2 more games after that. We won 5-11, and we found ourselves in position to draft RG3, which we all know as fans, the 2020 season of RG3's rookie year.
Right.
So I'm not going to sit here and say that that's going to be the same case here. I'm just simply saying it's been a long time since we've been 3-1, but 3-1 doesn't automatically equate to
Absolutely.
winning the division, going to the playoffs, and all that kind of stuff. A lot can happen between now and then.
And I
But
don't know what our situation was there. While we were sitting here talking, I looked up where we sit. I knew we were doing well with the salary cap as of right now. Now, for those that don't know, you can carry over any money that you didn't use for the 2024 season over to the next season for 2025. So right now, Washington has roughly 25 million to roll over. And next year they are number 2, have the second most money out of any team in the NFL. That's and not counting that 25,000. I'm 25 million. And we are sitting cap space. Well, they have cap space or effective cap space. The cap space is 121 million plus whatever gets rolled over. And you need that 25 million that's sitting there because people get injured and you have to re-sign people or pick up people. So there's always typically some money there. But effective cap space is 103 million along with whatever rolls over. So there's room to make moves next year. Re-sign some of your current low dollar players and role players. You're always going to do that, but you've got the opportunity potentially, if it makes sense, to go get a couple superstars. Go get truly impact players. And we'll see. We'll see what they put together and the plan they put together. But when the team has success like they have this first handful of games, and you have a quarterback that, you know what? I'm just going to say, I can't wait until they have to pay him. Because if he keeps going, when he signs, he'll be the highest paid quarterback ever. I mean, we know how much it's gone up the last 3 or 4 years. What's it going to go in another 4 years for Jaden Daniels if he continues the way he has, just slightly improves and maintains for 4 or 5 years.
I'm not looking
He's going to, it might be the first $1 billion contract. Who knows how It sounds ridiculous. At some point, somebody's going to sign it, though, right?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm not looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it because that means we've had our quarterback and we've had a lot of success. Teams that are well run find a way of doing it. Look at all the money that the 49ers have spent. Look at the money that Kansas City has spent. They know how to do it. They have a lot of routine players, and then you have 3, 4, 5 players that are impact players. And when you pay a player to be an impact player, he has to be that player. Right?
Okay.
And that's where the Redskins Commanders, I'll say from 2000 until till yesterday, they've swung and missed on a lot of those. Way too many of those. And that's the problem. So
we're getting off topic, but let me just rebut that just for a quick second. Why when I say I'm not looking forward to it, because as long as you have a competent quarterback, they're going to demand a big payday, and demanding a big payday doesn't necessarily mean he's the guy. If Jayden Daniels has the effect on our team the way, say, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes has,
yes,
then I'm going to gladly pay him.
Right.
But then for every Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, you have a Trevor Lawrence, you have a Tua, you have a Jalen Hurts, you got a Jordan Love, who got paid just because they were just good enough talent, and you're afraid to let them out the door, so you got to pay them, but yet it still can handicap your team. So my question is, at this point, if Jayden is the Josh Allen's, Lamar Jackson's, Patrick Mahomes, I say I'm glad to pay him. But if he's just kind of hovering around like, man, he's good, and I'm going to even throw Dak Prescott. If he's a Dak Prescott or Trevor Lawrence and Tua and Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, then now all of a sudden we're in this, it's going to be shades of Kirk Cousins, meaning, man, that's a lot of money. But do we pay him? Man, but if we don't, who we going to have? Then we in this type of situation again, and he's making a ton of money.
Yeah.
So he's got to be that difference maker for me to be comfortable with it. But just because another 4 years and he's good,
right,
then it's not going to be the impact that we're wanting. And so that's the only reason why I say that.
And don't be a top 5 impact quarterback and then go to Cleveland, right? Because that's evidently that must be the death of you also, right? And that's who we play next week. But we'll talk about that on our next podcast. Going against Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
But yeah, it's funny that we're having these kind of conversations, that we're able to have these kind of conversations and be dead serious about it. It's a good sign. It's
a new day. It's a new era. It's
a good day. It is the organization, the entire organization, which right now includes the fans, is all in march step, going in the right direction, and go from there. So
absolutely. Well, I think that's all I got, Ken. How did I do?
I think you did okay.
I made it through, man.
You made it through.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. And we enjoy doing this. It's fun, and in this particular case, this was a little bit of an outlet for me. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and I guess we shall be back soon enough. And we're on to Cleveland, and we'll see what happens then. So until next time, y'all.
Cleveland coming to Washington. I'll go ahead and speak for myself as well as the listeners. We wish you safe travels as you handle the things that you need to handle. And until next time, peace out, knuckleheads.
Peace out, y'all.